In the last few days, across multiple platforms, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has spoken a lot about the work that his government has done in the last 9.5 years. He has made a very strong pitch to be re-elected as the Prime Minister of the country for the third term. He has spoken about making the country among developed countries of the world by 2047, and he has also spoken about a new world order. To make sense of most of these statements, we have with us a senior minister from the Modi cabinet, Mr. Hardeep Puri. Mr. Puri is the Minister for Urban Development and also the Minister for Petroleum and Natural Gas. He has been a bureaucrat in his earlier avatar. He knows governance and also the politics of governance. Thank you very much, sir, for speaking to us. I start with a very basic question. This has been on everybody's mind since the PM spoke about it on Independence Day. A developed country by 2047. That sounds ambitious, it sounds challenging. Are we on the right track?
First of all, thank you very much for having me on your show. Your question goes to the heart of the 9.5 years of the Modi government. When the Prime Minister exudes confidence, and not just confidence, but comes out with a roadmap of what we will be like, let's say in 2030 and then in 2047, he's exuding that confidence based on some solid, statistical, empirically verifiable data.
Right.
When he has that kind of preparation that he has got undertaken, based on that preparation, he can also project ahead as to where this is likely to take us. So this 2047 Sankalp, developed nation, is not only a realistic target, expectation, but I have been on record many a times to say that 2047 is an indicator, but we would be a developed nation even before that. Now, why do I say that? First of all, insofar as what constitutes development.
Yes.
Clearly, the size of your economy, your GDP, the development of various core sectors, the issue on whether the core developmental indices reflect that they have percolated down, to those who are the most vulnerable members of society.
Yes.
And where will you stand in terms of the rest of the world?
Right.
All right. Now, let me start at the basics. The economy in India today is doing well. When you talk about a 6 or a 6.5% rate of growth, that in and of itself, I think, is not unimpressive. It's pretty impressive. But what are you comparing this to? You're comparing this to other countries which have had a track record of fast growth. The United States of America, a leading economy in the world, $26 trillion or thereabouts. China, the second largest economy, anywhere around $17-18 trillion GDP.
Yeah.
Europe, today we've traveled from being the 10th largest economy to being the 5th largest economy.
Right.
And the Prime Minister says with that same confidence that during his third term, India will be amongst the 3 largest economies in the world. That third term, you're looking at a time frame of 24 to 29. All right. Why are we so confident?
Yes.
We are not confident. It's the figures which are speaking.
Okay.
Today, if you end 2023, I'm talking about the calendar year, with a GDP of 3.75 trillion or 3.8 trillion, the 2 economies which are ahead of us in terms of GDP are the German and the Japanese economy.
Right.
One is at 4.1, the other 4.3. If you are growing at 6.5%,
Right.
and the other economies have either flat growth.
Yes.
I mean, I'm talking about, I don't want to take any names, one economy which traditionally last 5 or 10 years, has been have virtually 1% or...
Yes.
Another economy, very large economy, has had quarter on quarter
Right.
decline, which is your definition for a big R.
Yes.
So it's not that you take draw any satisfaction from the others not doing well. You merely take the existing reality and how we are going forward. How can we be confident about going forward? You look at all your consumption indices. Energy. Your energy consumption today, madam, is 3 times the global average. Okay. You look at the growth. Let me just say, completely off the cuff. Your automobile sector. Forget that. Let me come to civil aviation. You know, even in parts of the country which had access issues, today the number of flights is way beyond. I mean, let's say J&K. Way beyond what they were in even in the pre-COVID times. Energy. We consume on an average 5 million barrels of crude oil in a day.
Right.
Okay. Our refining capacity, which is about 252 million barrels per day, is going up to 320 million. 250 metric tons, 250 metric tons per day
Right.
is going up to 300, 320. I used to use a figure of 400 metric tons. The Prime Minister, I think during India Energy Week in Bengaluru in February, talked about 450 millimetric.
Right.
All right. Let me move completely away from this. That green transition that you are doing. Biofuels. With the best will in the world, the governments between 2004 and 14, they only wanted a 4%
Right.
biofuel mix in 10 of our
Right.
states and union territories, or 15. They wanted 5%, they only got 1.4%.
Right.
As the Prime Minister said in his address to the nation from the Red Fort, we completed 10% blending 5 months in advance, and we are going to do that 20% blending not in 2030 but in 2025, and we are on the way to doing it.
Right.
Look, economic progress requires sound policy framework.
Yes.
It requires bold decision making. It requires the government of the day to tweak
Right.
decision making, both in terms of policy, etc. Look at the area that we have singled out for reform.
Right.
I'm not just talking about the legal system, I'm talking about even in energy. Earlier, well, you invited people to come and prospect for E&P, and then when you found the oil, you said, yeah, this is a sovereign asset. Now
Right.
we've gone from there to actually incentivizing. We are ready to chip in for others to go and this thing. We are going from production sharing to revenue sharing. In whole world out there is changing.
Right, sir.
Why is anyone therefore surprised that the Prime Minister, based on those 9.5 years, I mean, if its starting point in 2014, he had turned around and said, we will be a $5 trillion economy by 2025, you could have turned back and said, hey, wait a minute, isn't there a bit of bravado there?
Yes.
But we started talking about $5 trillion economy by 2025 and a $10 trillion economy by 2030 only recently. When we saw that we had moved in the range of $3 trillion plus. Now there is it's axiomatic
Yes.
that if you have, let's say, 5 years of that growth, then you can expect to increase the size of the GDP by so many percent.
Absolutely.
From 2030 to 2047, don't listen to what I am saying or what our government people are saying. I draw your attention to outfits like Ernst & Young. They say by 2040, we should be 2040 thereabouts, we should be a $26 trillion economy. Now, today, your per capita income has doubled between 2014 and 2023. Just imagine what your per capita income increases will be when you go from 2023 to 2040 and 2047.
Right.
It's not, it's 6 times, 8 times.
Right.
That is the point at which you will not only be a developed economy, but you may well be vying for the second largest position, because it depends on what's happening elsewhere.
Yes, sir.
50% of our GDP is in the external sector, and I come to that. Yes, what happens in the rest of the world affects us,
Right.
because the import and export of goods and services, the remittances from outside, if you have very healthy and buoyant exports, obviously there will be cause for worry if the economies to which you are exporting are not able to absorb your exports with the same thing. But today, I think we are in the comfortable position of domestic demand revving up.
Right.
And I don't know whether this is whether there's an economic explanation for it, but I think the period of the lockdown during COVID, thereafter many people feel to say that this is your time to go out and do domestic travel, domestic tourism. Your hospitality sector is showing you can't get a room for the love of money in a lot of the tourist spots, including J&K.
Yes, absolutely.
And the flights are chock-a-block full. They are expanding.
Yes.
Tell me any other country in the world where the civil aviation sector, thanks to the privatization of Air India, are ordering 500-600 planes by one entity, another 500-600 planes by another entity. So I think when the Honorable Prime Minister talks about the economy, he does so with a full understanding of what is happening on the ground.
Right.
And he is also confident that this can be sustained in the coming year till the next election takes place and thereafter.
Right.
Therefore, these are not predictions.
Right.
These are projections based on the current reality and the trends which are evident.
So the PM also talked about demography being a strength for Indian democracy. Now, having a large number of young population also comes with its sets of challenges. We have to empower them. How are you guiding states to build cities that are resilient to disasters and also to this growing demand of urbanization?
So I'm glad you talked about what the PM in his speech called the 3 Ds.
Yes.
You talked about democracy, he talked about diversity, and he talked about demography or the young population. One, what is a fact? Fact is that our average age is 29 years, and that makes it a young population. But again, these are, Vasudha-ji, these are relative things. 50% of our population is below 25 years of age. The average age is 29. But compared to what? Compared to, let's say, a large Asian economy, which currently is ahead of us, where the birth rate and the average age is very different. Then large sections of the developed world are not having a demographic profile. They are, I think, at a disadvantage. Now, clearly, if you have a large young population, education and skills, now that's something the Prime Minister is according highest priority to. Yes, it is a challenge, because if we are not able to skill or educate or skill that young population, then you'll begin to face problems of a different kind. But 2-3 things which are happening and which I think have a context, and there's a simultaneity. There's more and more economic investment coming into India. I read a report today that one of the foreign investors is going to be making the iPhone 15. It doesn't matter who is making what. That's not the important thing. But a few years ago, you were importing all these phones. Today, you are one of the world's largest manufacturer and you are one of the largest exporter. And that economic activity is in billions of dollars of export. Today, any youngster, whether he or she is in the informal sector or the formal sector, they've all got a telephone in their hands. So you look at the internet penetration, you look at the use of technology, also digital inclusion, etc., digital India. I think the coordinates for a skilled young population and a highly aware and educated young population is there. Now, you can digress into areas and say, well, this part of our, policy maybe needs another acceleration. But you have people concentrating on that full time. Diversity is another very important factor. I have been convinced for a long time that those who don't understand India, they don't fully comprehend that our democracy, elections every few years, the ability to resolve differences through the electoral process, the fact that governments which are voted out of power leave which is very different from some other places where elections are held. I mean, you know, when I was on the Security Council, I shouldn't perhaps say this, but I will. There's a part of the world when we used to do what is called an alert as to where, you know, problems are likely to take place.
Right.
And one index was you try and look at where the, you know, the executive head term is coming to an end.
Right.
And you could say with reasonable certainty
Yes.
that they may not want to leave office.
Right.
And they would want to perpetuate this thing. But this is a completely democratic. So when the Prime Minister talks of mother of democracy, India, it's very clear. You've had republics here in Vaishali, I think, what, 600 BC. I mean, you've had democracy in every part of your existence. Even when you look at the, you know, ancient Indus Valley civilization, you've got sabhas or halls there. I'm not going into that. Democracy is a part of our life, and I don't think what life would be without democracy.
Right.
Diversity gives an opportunity for different communities to flourish, and that demographic thing, the young population, they have to carry through.
Right.
But when you tell the younger generation today that 2047 Viksit Desh, and you are the heirs of it, because listen, in 2023, when I address younger, you know, their average age is 14, 15, where will they be in the next 25 years? They are the ones who are going to shape that.
Absolutely.
Now, in any human endeavor, no matter which profession you are in, you can't predict with exact certainty as to what is going to happen. But what you can do, make sure the policy mix is right, as against an earlier period when you had complete policy paralysis.
Right.
Decision making came to a halt. You please try and catalogue what has happened after 2014 and what happened before that.
Right.
I can give you a ready reckoner figure. In my urban sector, the expense on all the urban schemes put together in the 10 years 2004 and 14 was 1,57,000 crores. In the 9 years of the Modi government, actually the scheme started in 2015, so it's 8.5 years.
Right.
It is over 18 lakh crores. So, kaha 1,57,000 crores to 18 lakh crores. But, you know, nobody is saying that this is what we've done and that's the only thing. You look at his speech from the ramparts of the Red Fort. 2 crore of our sisters would become Lakhpatis.
Yes.
Then, for those who are in the informal sector as masons, carpenters, etc., 15,000 crores for support to them.
Absolutely.
Then, it's not that we are sitting on our laurels on Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. He's again talking about that if there is a gap there, further, some form of interest subvention.
Absolutely.
So, if you the Jan Aushadhi Kendras will go up from 10,000 to 25,000 centers, 15,000 Jan Aushadhi Kendras addition. So, I think you have the chief executive, elected prime minister in the world's largest democracy, constantly hands-on in terms of what more needs to be done.
Absolutely.
And you know, every day is a new experience.
Right.
When we got into the lockdown, one of the most vulnerable sections of our society were the ready patri walas.
Yes.
The people who borrow money at exorbitant rates, ply their daily wares, and then have to return the money.
Right.
And they have been included in a scheme of financial inclusion.
Right.
They are micro entrepreneurs, but they first loan 10,000, return that virtually without an interest. On time, you get another loan of 20,000, you return that, you get another one of 50,000. From being completely dependent on microcredit at exorbitant rates, or they've become unloaded, they've gone from the informal sector to the formal sector, and they've become beneficiaries of all the other Prime Minister schemes.
Absolutely.
The Kendriya Yojana. So I think it's a constant process, and that's why 2047 is no longer a point of doubt in anybody's mind. It's a roadmap. Yes, we will have to continue to get things right, but it's very much achievable. But look at the sense of purpose that it gives us and the younger generation. that you're working towards that objective.
Right, sir. Mr. Puri, when we're talking about your ministries, one of the projects that the PM has often praised is the way the parliament was built in record time. Can you share some learnings that you had from executing this project, and how was your experience?
I would say two things. That the Prime Minister clearly had applied his mind and was clear in his mind that in governance or architecture or set of buildings which was conceptualized in something like 1916 or 17, and I think the construction started in 1922 and 27, I don't remember it. I think the first question that must have struck the Honorable Prime Minister is, why has it taken us so long to think of a new parliament and a new set of government buildings? Buildings that were constructed in the 1920s were never designed for a newly independent India or to be the legislature of a newly independent India. In fact, the British built this parliament and all the surrounding architecture to serve it was supposed to be the seat of the imperial, the legislature, the assembly. It's not that people didn't talk about it. Functionaries, including leaders in the Congress party, have spoken about it. In fact, when Shrimati Meera Kumar was the speaker, her secretary wrote to the secretary in my ministry saying it's about time we got a new parliament built. Look, my association with this project goes back to the time I was appointed or joined the Council of Ministers, 3rd September 2017. A few days after I joined, I received a huge thing to be opened by the addressee, which is me. There were large pictures of the seat of governance, many places. Washington, D.C., Australia, Brasilia, all of them. Obviously, somebody had been studying this.
Absolutely. So,
I have no doubt who was looking at that. Who this somebody was. And had been studying and looking at what is required.
That's interesting.
Now it's very interesting that in 2017, when I joined, I was not aware of the fact that actually in 2026, the delimitation issue will crop up. As against the current number, the number of MPs in the Lok Sabha will go up by quite a bit. So even for the current number, you don't have the sitting space. And you extracted the sitting space behind the pillars, you should not be sitting. We did that. We have taken, extra air conditioning ducts. You've taken, made ducts for, and it has moved in the seismic zone. So you urgently need to refurbish that, re-strengthen, etc. So, but here is a Prime Minister who saw it well in time, and the rest is history. Rest is history. It's a project that he has monitored personally. It's a project which, when we did the inauguration, all of us, our hearts swelled with pride. And when we start operating out of that, I think it will be open. A lot of you have seen it on the day of the inauguration. But I think it will rank, and I say this without any hesitation, it will rank amongst one of the most splendid and a place people will want to come and see because it combines our historical, our legacy, culture, etc. with modernity. I mean, you take the story of India as the world's oldest democracy and how that story is unfolded, plus it has the latest cutting edge technology, etc. And nothing that is part of our legacy, cultural heritage is ever being brought down. All those buildings will be intact. The buildings which will come down, the ones which were built in a half-baked manner in the 60s, etc., without any application in terms of utilization of space or other issues, which was sporadic. And I think this is very much a part of the new India. It will the temple of democracy will reflect the the finest tenets of what is part of India.
So when you talk about, I mean, this is about your other ministry, when you talk about inflation around fuel prices, can you explain to us what all did you do to navigate the question of diplomacy around oil? And how was the PM sort of involved in this? And in the coming days, would you see oil companies sort of like passing on their gains to common people?
Well, first and foremost, let me just state upfront for you and your viewers that our energy consumption is shooting up.
Okay.
Today, 5 million barrels a day of crude oil we are consuming. It's likely to go up to 6.5 in the coming time. We have three challenges, or rather we had three challenges, we still have three challenges. One is availability. For a country which is dependent on imports, up to 80% for its crude oil and about 50% or so for natural gas, clearly what happens in the rest of the world is of importance to us. Second one is affordability, and the third one is sustainability. This is what I call the trilemma. Insofar as availability is concerned, I think yes, we were able to diversify our sources of supply, which were at 27 earlier, to 39 now. We have been absolutely flexible.
Right.
Without hesitation. If we could buy crude cheaper somewhere or more readily somewhere, we use the market card, because we also realize that we have that advantage. Let me give you an example. When the military action took place, Russia-Ukraine, in February 2020, we bought hardly any oil from the Russians. I think, if memory serves me right, 0.2% or so only. That suddenly changed, and we started buying more and more and more oil. Now, of late, last 2-3 months, that has become less.
Right.
We are buying more oil from Iraq, more from the UAE. Oil purchases are not undertaken by the government. It's not that the ministry gets in and buys the oil. There are private sector players, and there are what we call the OMCs, or oil marketing company. All of them have one thing in common, that they want to access the maximum amount at the cheapest price. So they will follow, they will issue tenders, and whoever applies, they will get it. The government has an important role to play. Because if the international prices, which went up from $19.56 for a barrel in when the lockdown was complete, with no consumption,
Right.
then it shot up to about $120. Now, if there's such a variation, there will be winners and there will be losers. The winners, those who produce the oil, obviously they'll be very happy the price has gone up. Some of those people who are in the refining business and reselling the business will be reasonably happy. But there are others, consumers also. A lot of people take a beating. So I can give you same thing for gas,
Yeah.
if international prices go up. But I want to first give you some comparative figures. I always believe that comparisons have to be
Sort of, yeah.
between amongst roughly similarly placed countries, etc. But what did the government do? On two occasions, November 2021 and May 2022, the central government, largely the Prime Minister, with others, joining in. I'll tell you why I mean the other. We reduced the excise on petrol and diesel on two occasions. The BJP ruled states also brought down the VAT that they charge.
Right.
Okay. Now, if you see the prices between different in Guwahati, now I'm comparing July 23 to July 23.
Okay.
Because, we are now in August, so
Yeah.
July month, we are 16 days or so into August. Guwahati petrol was retailing at 98 rupees, 3 paise. In Kolkata, it was retailing at 106 rupees and 3 paise, difference of 8 rupees. Between Gandhinagar and Jaipur, the difference was 96.63 in Gandhinagar, 108.48 in Jaipur. Difference of 11 rupees 85 paisa. Vasudha ji, I tell you another thing. You don't buy 1 liter of petrol. Depending on the vehicle that you use, your tank may be 30 liters or it may be 50 liters or even more.
Yeah.
Just imagine if it's a 50 liters tank and the difference in price per liter is 11 rupees 85 paisa.
Right.
50 multiplied by 11.85, that's a sizable difference. I will come now to diesel. I'll give you one example. In July 23 comparison period, Imphal 87 rupees 15 paise diesel per liter, Hyderabad 97 rupees 82 paise, difference of 10 rupees 67 paise. Again, I put that same multiplier. Then, in other words, if you go into one of these states and you have a capacity of 50, I mean, out of a sizable amount of money, it may not affect the very well-to-do. Gandhinagar and Amravati, 7 rupees 23 paise difference. 92.38 in Gandhinagar and 99.61 in Amravati. Okay.
Got it.
Now, I am just going to go away from that and come to country comparison. What is the increase that took place between June 21 and June 23? I'm taking a 2-year period. India, the increase was 2.36%. All right?
Okay.
Let me give you some countries in India's immediate neighborhood. Pakistan, 50.83% increase.
Okay.
In Sri Lanka, 79.61% increase. Nepal, 42.39% increase. USA, 30.15% increase. Canada, 24.17% increase. Let me go to diesel now, very quickly. In increase, ours is 4.97%, Pakistan 40.81%, Bangladesh 50.11%, Sri Lanka 130.65%, Nepal 46.35%. Just compare it with USA 29.31%. All right, you can turn around and say,
Right.
well, countries are placed in different circumstances. One country they can afford, it doesn't matter. I'm not going into that. I'm taking the same country for the same period.
Right, got it.
In other words, if there was an affordability in June 21, it doesn't change very much in June 23.
Right.
Look at the percentage changes.
Right, sir.
So I make the submission to you, madam, that we were able to ensure availability.
Right.
At no time in the last few years have we allowed any form of shortage, including during the torrential rains in the northeast. Our oil marketing company, their people carried cylinders on their shoulders and delivered them in the heavy rain.
Yes.
Affordability, I gave you the statistics.
Give me that.
Availability, affordability, and sustainability is the best story.
Right.
Our biofuel percentage is going up. The work we are doing on CNG is showing results. CBG, we are not only now doing ethanol production from the traditional feed, which is sugar, maize. We are also going into 2G. 2G means making it from agricultural waste.
Okay.
Instead of burning the parali, we have a plant in Panipat where we make ethanol from that. There have been challenges, aggregation. You know, how do you collect the agricultural waste from different fields? So we incentivize that.
Right.
Also, we are going into 3G, third generation, where you make it from gases.
Right.
In fact, we have probably one of the world's first 3 third generation plants, also in Panipat, etc. So I think on all fronts, we can say with a degree of humility and satisfaction that things are moving ahead.
Right.
I have absolutely no doubt that our refining capacity will go up to 450 million metric tons.
Right.
But we will also become one of the major energy hubs in the world. Why? Not because of biofuels alone. The work being done on green hydrogen.
Okay.
I think when 2 years ago the Honorable Prime Minister said from the Red Fort that green hydrogen will be taken up in mission mode, a lot of skeptical people, abhi to kuch hua nahi hai, abhi kuch nahi kiya. But now nobody says that. Why? Because green hydrogen has taken off.
Right.
One of my oil companies, which has 11 refineries, is doing 2 green hydrogen. Green hydrogen success will come only in countries, and I think India is fortunate, where there will be demand generated locally, where the production will take place locally, and the consumption will take place there. A green hydrogen or any gas does not lend itself to large-scale transportation. So I think we are on track there also.
But Mr. Puri, the price of LPG cylinders, is it a concern? Because, you know, it's also become a political subject, because in this whole guarantee ecosystem of the Congress, the party is promising LPG cylinders at reduced rates. It did the same in Karnataka, Himachal Pradesh. So is there any...
No, let me place a perspective to you. when we talk about affordability, which means we are subsidizing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
A subsidy on gas cylinders, even at any given point of time, including today,
Right.
is not less than 9,000-10,000 crores per year, maybe a little less or maybe a little more. What is involved in this? Our companies took, during this period, they incurred a loss of 28,000 crores. So we reimbursed 22,000 crores to them. That is our style of doing it. We take the rap, we take the consequences, and then we do it. There's another style of doing this, which is the current Reverie brand of politics. You promise. Now, you might reach a stage, I won't name the state, where anybody will pay anything for electricity.
Right.
But where is the money going to come from? The Congress, during the years that they were in power, 2004 and 14, very interestingly, they were faced with a problem like this. So what they decided to do, they decided to float oil bonds.
Okay.
So I think the oil bonds were 1,41,000 crores. And you know how much we're paying back now? 3,50,000 crores. So that is a model which is irresponsible. You have to live within your means.
Right.
And by the way, this subsidy was being given and prices were being reduced at a time when the Honorable Prime Minister was providing 3 meals of dry ration free in a day to 80 crore of our citizens.
Right.
And that's still going on.
Right.
So the submission I make to you is it a political issue? Well, I'll tell you, the guy who came in wearing a har of tomato, so, you know, that's, it's a graphic thing. So I joked with him. I said, oh, cylinder bhi gale mein dal ke le aate. He knew I was pulling his leg. But seriously, government will make all efforts, including bringing the price of the gas cylinder down.
Right.
We are already providing one subsidy of 200 rupees per cylinder.
Right.
But more than that, do you know, during the pandemic, the government supplied 3 cylinders free. That's why, and cylinder consumption, including amongst, and these are only for economically weaker section and those who live below the poverty line. The consumption has gone up from 3 cylinders to 3.71 cylinders, and 4 cylinders is what an average consumption should be. I take your point. Gas cylinder prices, it will depend on the global situation.
Absolutely.
Obviously, the price is going up, but I am very confident
Right,
that we've navigated this well, and even the time to come also, that the government is seized of it and they will receive. But we will do it in a responsible manner.
Absolutely.
Some of the others who are promising relief actually are not being able to pay up.
Absolutely, sir. My second last question to you. We're talking about the opposition. Tell us, what do you feel about this INDIA alliance? Aam Aadmi Party and Congress have already started showing some disagreements, especially with regard to Delhi and Punjab. Tell us, do you really think that these opposition parties have the potential in them to sort of put forward a formidable opposition to the BJP?
No, I would forget about a formidable opposition. I have a very simple take on this. Most of them, if you analyze their, recent history, the Aam Aadmi Party is a relative new arrival. It's a political startup.
Yes.
Where were they born? They were born out of a agitation against entrenched corruption.
Right.
So today they want to get into bed with somebody whom they defined as entrenched corruption. That is something they will have to respond to. My own take is they will collapse under the weight of their own contradictions and the corruption which goes with it.
Right.
Now the TMC is unlikely to be happy to be in alliance with the Congress or the CPIM in West Bengal. And the Congress, as you say, madam, is not likely to be happy, or the Aam Aadmi Party happy with each other in Punjab and in Delhi. And I can go on giving these examples.
Right, sir.
But I'm going to make another prediction. If this is only about political power, many of them will cross and come over to us or seek other alliances. I am very clear that the message which is now resonating at the grassroots level is, if you want development, the BJP will give you a Awas. Look, I have the privilege of being associated with the Honorable Prime Minister, many of his major programs. Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, Ujjwala, the metro system, smart cities mission, the Swanidhi mission. So I could go on and on, NULM. So I think the decibel level
Right.
of the opposition so-called I full stop N full stop D full stop I full stop A, India is not punctuated. India is a living, growing, phenomenal force for good,
Right.
with several thousand years of history behind us and demonstrated achievement. When they used to say, Sone ki chidiya, I'm not talking about the golden period of so-and-so. I mean, if you look at the GDP in the 190 years prior to British colonial experience here, and look where it's going now. You've overtaken the UK to become the 5th largest economy. So I have no doubt that this is both an opportunistic, a convenience, marriage convenience, but you know, it's also pathetic to see one day they say we will be making common cause. Next day, one spokesperson, Alka Lamba, says something, then they're contradicted half an hour. This is going to collapse under the weight of its own contradictions.
Right, sir. Mr. Puri, my last question to you. What about your own future, sir? Would you be also contesting elections? Because
No, listen, I have a term in the Rajya Sabha till November of 2026. I have been greatly privileged to have been associated with the party as it is. I'm a Karyakarta of the party, and that's the way I want to stay.
But we see you so active in Delhi. So
No, I'm active because I have good friends like you who engage me in conversation. But no, it's I think, you know, Lok Sabha seats should be contested by younger people so that you nurture constituency. Look, I had a life before this. I spent 39 years in the Foreign Service. I was 6 years, I was international think tanking and doing other things. And now I've been a minister for 6 years also. So if you look at my working experience, I started in 1973. Today it's 2023. So I think I'm ready to continue working, but I don't think the pace can be accelerated beyond this.
That's well said, sir. Thank you so much for your insights and time.
Thank you.
Thank you.